What's up, guys? Back with another video, and I'm back with as I promised from the last video. I promised that when I finish charging my camera here, my computer, so I can record again. We'll research on aliens. So we're gonna get a little bit of help from Michelle Thaler. That's how I say it right, but yeah, she's a astronomer. Yeah, so she's from NASA also. So yeah, let's just jump right into it and see what she has to say.
One of the biggest questions is, could there be other life besides us out there in the universe? And I think pretty much every scientist I know feels that there must be. I mean, just simply the numbers. In our galaxy alone, there are 500 billion stars. And we're now beginning to realize that nearly every star has its own solar system. So at the very least, our single galaxy has hundreds of billions of planets. And some of the stars out there are even older than our sun. There may have been a chance for a civilization to start billions of years before life began on Earth.
Yep.
And if that's true, could there be alien civilizations out there that are far more advanced technologically than we are? The unfortunate thing, of course, is we have no evidence of this. They're not making it very obvious. So is there a way that we might be able to see some of the, at least the artifacts of one of these super civilizations around a distant star? And one of the people who thought about this in a really wonderfully scientific way was a man named Freeman Dyson. And his name got lent to something called a Dyson Sphere. And what a Dyson Sphere is, the idea is that a very advanced civilization would probably need a lot of energy. And one of the best sources of energy is.
All right, I gotta stop it right there. So I'm gonna just simplify it, right? So basically, or simplify. Yeah, I don't know why I said it like that. So basically, a Dyson sphere is just a giant solar solar shield around solar plate around the sun that collects all the energy. So yeah, I just saved time
Ways
there.
to build an entire shell from that stone. A lot of people have suggested that maybe a shell wouldn't be stable. It'd be very hard to keep that actually working and orbiting around a star. So maybe you could make a giant grid of huge collectors that would orbit around the star and pick up as much radiation as possible. So a Dyson sphere, or sort of the equivalent of that, of there being many, many orbiting detectors around a star, is a wonderful idea in science fiction. The question is there a way you could detect one of these?
All right, so actually, yeah, I keep on pausing her, but yeah, I just want to say something real quick. So for me, like for her to say that for like another extraterrestrial like civilization to build a Dyson sphere, here's the thing about that. They live on another planet. All right, let me just simplify this again, right? So if you have a let's say a pigeon and a cat right next to each other, right? And you tell them to live with each other in a house, they won't be able to do that. Or in the wild, doesn't matter. They won't be able to do that because they're two different animals, right? So let's say humans are the pigeons and then the aliens are the, I don't know, cat, right? They don't know what we do in our life, right? They just know what they do in their lives. So engineering over there and over here will be a different, like completely different, because we're all different. We're not the same, right? I mean, when I say we're all, I mean, I don't know if there's any others out there like us, but you know what I mean when I say that. So yeah, they don't think like we think. So yeah, for them to make a Dyson sphere, actually, what she's talking about right now, I don't know about that, but maybe she might, use another way of saying this and might, correct my the statement.
And for some time, actually, people have wondered, what if you saw a lot of infrared radiation, heat radiation, coming from a star-like object, but you didn't see any visible light? Is it possible that there was a shell of material around that star used to collect all of its energy, and that shell was getting warm because it's around the star, but it wasn't letting any light through? There are very serious scientists who proposed looking for star-like objects that just have heat but no light associated with them. Unfortunately, we never found any of those either. A couple years ago, however, something very dramatic happened. And it happened as part of the Kepler mission. This was a mission that was looking for planets around other stars. And the way Kepler looked for planets is it basically looked at a part of the sky where you could see a couple 100,000 stars all at once, and it just stared at that for years. The telescope never moved. It looked at the same part of the sky for a very, very long time. And then over time, scientists looked to see if the starlight varied over all of these stars. Could each star be varying as a planet went around and made a little eclipse? So the planet has to be lined up perfectly along our line of view. But that can happen. There's a lot of planets in many different orientations around the stars in the sky. So if it's lined up perfectly, you would see a little eclipse. A planet would go in front of a star. You wouldn't see the planet itself, but you would notice the starlight drop. The star would get a little dimmer. So what happens if you notice that a single star in that field gets a little dimmer every 3 days? Right? Every 3 days, there's the same little dimming that comes back around again and again. You realize you have a planet there. A planet, in this case, that's orbiting every 3 days and blocking out light. Some of the planets we found have larger orbits. We've even found planets in Earth-like orbits that go around about once a year. So Kepler found thousands of planets just by looking at this one part of the sky. Now, normally, when a planet
That's
goes in
cool.
front of a star, the dip in brightness is very small. I mean, less than 1%. If you have a big planet, a planet the size of Jupiter, and maybe that planet is even very close to the star, it can go down maybe a couple percent. You know, the actual effect is relatively small. Stars are much larger and much brighter than any planet going around them. So the dip is just a little dip. And so imagine people's surprise a couple years ago when one of the stars seemed to be going through very dramatic dips in brightness, as much as 25%. Now, the only thing that could block out 25% of the light of a star is something as big as another star, and then you
Yeah.
would see another star going around, and that wasn't there. We'd never seen anything like that before. And interestingly enough, this was something done by what we call a citizen scientist. There are people in the public who are not trained scientists who actually help NASA kind of comb through our data. And they have no training. It's almost kind of like a video game format. They actually help us go through the data, and they sort of flag things that are interesting. We obviously have computer programs that look for these variations in starlight, and the computer programs find 99% of everything that we're looking for. But sometimes there's a weird result, something that doesn't match the computer algorithm, and the computer throws it out. And that's what happened with this star. It was such a dramatic dip that it couldn't have been real. And not only that, the dip was not symmetric. When you have a little ball, a little planet go in front of a star, the dip is nice and symmetric. It's a nice, even, circular shape that goes in front of the star. This was very weirdly shaped, almost as if giant triangles were moving across the surface of the star.
All right. Well, that's one thing. Um, those aliens or extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them, they do know geometrics. They do know how to make shapes. So they must be almost as smart as. I mean, we don't know that much about them if there is a them anywhere, but I mean, there could be like different shaped planet or like asteroids or like planet. We never know. We couldn't like get over there anyways if we even tried. So we'd never know. But aliens, it's not that far of a stretch. Like for billion, if you look up in the sky, a starry night, you can't even count how many like stars there are in the sky, bro. There are more stars in the sky, or stars in this galaxy, or stars in the group of galaxies that we're in, than the grains of sand on Earth. That's a lot. All right, that's a lot. So there has to be at least one other planet that supports life. It doesn't even have to be like you know really intelligent life like us, like human beings, right? It just has to be at least like a plant, or like just thriving life like animals or something like that, just normal life. That would be fair in my opinion.
Star. So scientists did not immediately jump to the conclusion that, hey, maybe these are giant alien solar collectors. But in the paper that was actually published, the first author was Tabitha Boyanjian. They noted that if there were something like a Dyson sphere, it might look something like this. And of course, the press grabbed that and it exploded, and people wondered, could we really have found evidence of a super civilization around this star? And I have to say, even myself, this star is about 60 light years away, and it is visible through a small telescope. It's not a particularly bright star, but you can see it through a small telescope. And I wondered if we could actually prove that this was artificial. You could go out in your backyard at night, put a telescope in the sky, and see this little point of light and know that there was something wonderful, amazing, super civilization around that star. It gave me goosebumps. Of course, we wanted to follow up and find out what this really was. Could this
Okay, so if if that super civilization, as like what she's saying, is real, then I'm pretty sure they already know that we're here. If they're able to build triangle like structures around a beam of light that's so big, the Earth is like a pebble to it compared to it, then they probably know we're already here, and they're harnessing like infinite power. Well, not infinite power. It's gonna turn into a you know into like either a white dwarf or a black hole, right? And yeah, but just a lot of energy. They're harnessing a lot of energy, so they have a lot of fuel, a lot of electricity. If they have that over there, I don't know if they do, but yeah, they probably already know we're here, and they probably already sent scouts. Now that's a that's a stretch, but we don't know, bro. We don't know, bro. I mean, there are billions of other stars. As I said, there are so many stars. Grains of sand are not even as many, as those stars. You can't even compare, right? So there has to be like some other intelligent life.
could this really be giant solar collectors orbiting around a star? Well, the unfortunate thing is, after a lot of follow up and looking at it in many different wavelengths of light, there was a relatively simple finding that whatever this was made out of dust. It
Yup.
actually bends different wavelengths of light, different colors differently, very much the same way that sunlight is reddened in a sunset. As it actually goes down through the air, blue light is scattered away, the red light is left, and you have a beautiful orange or red sunset. And so whatever this is made out of dust. Unless aliens are particularly good at making giant solar collectors out of particles that are less than a millionth of a meter across, that's not an alien civilization. Instead, we have a new mystery. What is this? There's a giant, opaque, thick dust cloud around this star, and it's very uneven. And people wonder if maybe two planets have recently collided. Maybe two planets collided and threw out this
Yup.
giant cloud of dust that's still kind of settling down. Maybe that's what we're looking at.
That's crazy. The fact that there's still like things happening, like we're just in our little bubble. Earth is just a little bubble. Then there's the people in the international spaceship. That's our little bubble right there. That's literally it. And then we're planning to get to the Mars. But we're in a little bubble. Little bubble. All we see is Earth. All we know about is Earth. But there's still things going out there, like I don't even know, like suns exploding, like black holes and stuff. It's like so much to like know out there, bro. I mean, I won't be alive to like venture out in space one day. Probably I will, but I don't know. I mean, because they're saying, I mean, it's so easy to get to Mars. I'm pretty sure they already got to Mars, and they're just like, oh, they're like lying to us or whatever. But it's just a theory, a game. I'm not saying that. Well, hope you guys enjoy the video, and as like the last one, this one has like a couple seconds left, so yeah, I'm gonna put the link in the description for this one. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video, and see y'all later. Deuces.